Hello and welcome to The Good, the Scaz and the Rugby. I'm Elma Smit and we are bringing you the show in partnership with our friends at Allianz. So we are going to be taking a closer look at the women's game, pulling back the curtain, getting to know some of the great personalities in the game, and also talk about how they do what they do and how to manage the demands. Now, of course, the Women's Six Nations on the horizon. We were all preparing for the 2021 Rugby World Cup. It's now been pushed to 2022, but it is still on the event horizon. And, the show is called The Good, the Scaz and the Rugby. Not only is she the best women's rugby player in the world, she now has a podcast named after her, Emily Scarratt.
I honestly never thought this would be a thing, but yeah.
And then we promoted him as the Lord himself on our socials. Yes, we have socials now at Good Scaz Rugby. Go give us a follow. Mike Tyndall, are you the good or the rugby?
Look, it's your show. I'm just coming in for a little peer today, so I'll give you the choice. What do you want to be?
I'll go for good, please.
You're like Alex. Alex is like the biggest rugby Norse ever. I know that you're not the same as Alex. He really is a Norse, but I always end up with the rugby. I mean, it just sounds so boring. But hey, I'll take it.
As long as it's not great, because that would give away my accent really badly. We'll just stay with good.
I'm just upset that I don't have tins in the name of any of our shows, at the moment. Sometimes, you try your best. And then, but it is nice in the fact that I've obviously got two professionals on this for the first time. Obviously on the good, the bad, the rugby, I've got to deal with some jokers over there. But it's then got worse because I now have to deal with someone who was also won a World Cup, also English, but who's also probably better than I was at my own position. So you take the rough with the smooth, don't you?
I love how both you and Haskell are having a whine about your names not being in the show title. Emily, how excited are you? Sorry, I keep calling you Emily because I feel like we're not quite tight enough for me to just lead with Scaz. Do you prefer Scaz?
Either's good with me. I think most people now call me Scaz, but bar my family. So it's kind of quite refreshing to be called Emily, but yeah, I really don't mind.
I was going to say, we haven't had our first off-site non-work do yet, where you've got to know each other over beers, or if you're in South Africa, over apple sours that you buy by the bottles. So everyone's like on first name, Emily, how are you?
Yeah, it's all very polite.
Yeah.
You have a show that doesn't have Emily in the title, but has Scaz in the title. I saw you nervously giggling every time Alex said it on The Good, the Bad, the Rugby. Are you still nervously giggling at the thought of it?
I think I will continue to nervously giggle at it. It's definitely not something I ever thought would happen. A few people have got stuck into me about it because it's probably not necessarily, it's probably not what I would have called it, if I was doing it myself. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? I suppose it's a nickname, so I can get away with a bit there. But yeah, the girls have definitely taken a bit of an opportunity to get stuck into it.
If you had named it yourself and you had named it like that, you would definitely be the new Hask. You would definitely be the Hask of the show.
Exactly. And we don't need two of those.
We definitely. There aren't enough brands in the world for that, unfortunately.
You have this platform to really change the conversation. There's this really big opportunity now where you can come on here every week for the next few weeks and just have a little, a digital box to go stand on and shout about some stuff. What do you expect? What do you want? What is it you want to achieve? Have you got any dreams of global domination off the pitch?
Definitely no dreams of global domination. It would just be cool to reach out to other people in the rugby world, in the sporting world. You get so focused on your team, your nation. Actually, it's just nice sometimes to have a broader perspective. A lot of people have it a lot better. A lot of people have it a lot worse. And just tell some stories, understand some people, get to know people. Yeah, through I guess women's rugby, and yeah, hopefully keep spreading the joy a little bit.
Mike, am I mistaken in saying that you guys have been busy with Good Bad Rugby now? What, 50 episodes deep around that?
Yeah. So we started August. I can't remember. I don't even actually know the name, which one your episode was. I even listened to it this morning. I didn't look at the number, but yeah, we've gone through a few episodes and we're sort of set into it. But we've always said that what the story is trying to get awareness pieces out there, not just of women's rugby, but then the characters in there, and compare it, not compare it necessarily, but share what goes in a women's locker room. Everyone wants to hear the stories of locker rooms, but it's no different whether it's men or women. It's all the same game. I mean, guaranteed there's probably the same characters in there and the same. I actually think it's probably worse in the women's changing room, which we'll get Scaz to enlighten us with over the forthcoming episodes. But I think it's time. I think obviously there's a lot of stuff out there with the World Cup being cancelled at the time, or postponed till next year, and I think we need to get into that and look at the stories around that, because now what I'm amazed about with women's rugby is they're multi-talented. So Scaz could finish playing 15s for a while and go concentrate on the Olympics and go, I mean, so jelly to go to
maybe
Olympics.
Not anymore, Mike. I might have been there 5 years ago. Maybe not anymore.
He's saying the anchor is slowly going down and everything's just, I'm not getting there just quite as quick. Tell me about it, mate. I played till I was 36. I should have probably finished way before that. But there you go. It's all about angles then, Scaz. You just got to learn when to drift more.
Efficiency, isn't it?
Yeah.
Efficiency.
Yeah, I was the master of angles. I was terrible at speed, but good at angles.
I love the angle that you guys have been going with your show so long, only to tee up sponsorship on the back of Emily's amazing reputation. And I would just like to give her a little slow clap for the fact that she brought in Allianz for us. So thank you so much, Emily Scarratt, for bringing some star power and some cash.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to get Scaz's view on like sponsorship in women's rugby, and you need powerhouses like Allianz to come in. We need more of that. We need more companies to get involved to sort of grow this great game, because growing both sides of it, male and female side of it, will help the whole game throughout the world. And I think I saw a stat that 40% of people who watch the Six Nations are female. So let's make sure that they've got an outlet to go and go and play rugby.
Get stuck in and be the person who changes the tide or stems the tide at the very least. Speaking of tides, the COVID tide seemed to just be against the 2021 Rugby World Cup going ahead. It wasn't clear in January that this was going to happen, and it was really interesting for me, Emily, when you were on the show with Alex and Hask, that you said you guys thought that if it was going to be cancelled, it would have been cancelled by December. So the announcement or the postponement, not the cancellation, of the 2021 tournament to 2022 and the news that came through happened while you were in camp. That's pretty hectic.
Look, maybe that was just my opinion, but I think now with the COVID world, or certainly in England, we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously New Zealand haven't had many cases, so maybe it was just me that I just thought now we'd be fine, whereas perhaps pre-Christmas there wasn't that light. Perhaps wouldn't have been as surprised if it was postponed. But yeah, we were in camp last Tuesday. So you can get a sense in camp when things are a bit different, staff are behaving a bit differently, and we were like, something's kicking off. And then literally that evening we got a message saying obviously the announcement, and then probably about half an hour later it was all over social media. So it broke really, really quickly. I don't know, like disappointed, gutted. It's hard to kind of quantify the feelings, I think, at the moment. I think everybody is in a slightly different camp with it, dependent on kind of your own personal circumstances. Obviously, you've got some of the older girls who were perhaps planning on retiring. They were already planning and looking at what life would look like post-rugby for them. And I'm talking teams all across the world, not just obviously the England team. You've got players who are at the moment, unfortunately, injured, who have perhaps written it off, who are now got a new lease of life because they're back in the mix. You've got the youngsters who realistically don't really care what it is. It's just another year for them on a long journey. People like the Sevens girls who were trying to juggle both, who are now able to perhaps park 15s for a bit, concentrate at the Olympics, and then pick it up next year. So I think people are in all kinds of different camps because of their own personal circumstances. So it's a bit of a weird one, if I'm honest with you.
And for you personally?
Yeah, I obviously sit in the young camp. It doesn't matter to me. I've got plenty more to come. No, I'm joking. I don't know. I think like naturally disappointed. I think, you a little bit like the guys, the Olympians last year who, you know, that got kind of whisked under their feet as well. I think you train for something, you plan it, everything's based and geared towards that. So yeah, disappointed, but I also understand lots of the reasons and all of that side of it. So hopefully now, with things opening up a bit, I can have a chilled summer, relax a bit, catch up with family and friends, get to the pub a bit, and just have a nice summer before the big year kicks off again.
Do you play golf, Scaz?
I attempt to play golf.
My golf day's the 25th of June. It's going to be a party, I tell you.
Okay.
Was it the right decision, Mike?
I don't know, because I know that always the question is would it have happened if it was the men's World Cup? And I probably don't think it is. And I don't know what the general. I mean, they said because fans couldn't travel, right? And it wouldn't help fans go over there. But obviously, if you look at New Zealand as a country, 2,400 cases, I think, total. There's obviously 5 million, 6 million people there. So I don't think the actual COVID is the problem. Obviously it's getting the teams in and how many people you come in. But their vaccinations, they've had 10,000 vaccinations. So I'm not entirely sure I buy into it, because obviously Kiwis are a hotbed of people. You're going to get people go and watch it because they are a rugby-loving nation. So yes, it would be sad not to have international travelling fans, but again, what's the right balance of the decision in terms of what does that take away from the Rugby World Cup, not having travelling fans there compared to actually still having it and making sure it's really accessible for everyone in New Zealand? So I don't know. I can't make my mind upon it, whether it is the right decision or not. If we come back in 2022 and it's the best competition in the world and all the stadiums are full and everything else, then obviously I will bow down and say it was a great decision. But, at the moment, I think they could have got it done. I think they still could have done it at a level that would have still been a great tournament. So I think it's a shame, really. It's because it's just another thing that's knocked off a sporting calendar that we were looking forward to.
Yeah, and the lack of fans is, that is something that we're all missing when we're watching sport at the moment. A lot of the broadcasters have become so good at putting in, that fan applause and reaction and stuff. From a player's perspective, Emily, I'm sure you want to play in front of the most diverse crowd possible and not have them all wear black jerseys.
I think a diverse crowd down in New Zealand would definitely be favourable for us. Yeah, I think it's also a huge part of obviously the fans, but like parents, friends and family, like generally they base their holidays and their social trips around where their daughters are playing rugby, and they form this really like cute community of kind of parents actually that travel around and followers. And I think it would be a massive shame for them. Obviously a lot of the girls, it'd be their first World Cup, to not be able to have their kind of loved ones there if they wanted to be there and were able to get there. Stuff like that would be a shame. But fundamentally, bottom line, we want to play in front of as many people as possible, and if an extra year makes that happen and it makes it even bigger, even better, and kind of disperses the black shirts a little bit in the crowd, then I'm all for it.
Oh, but there's nothing better than if you go to New Zealand and you just destroy them in their own backyard in front of their own fans. It's not that easy. I made it sound like it's really easy. It's not.
I was going to say,
but there's more satisfaction in that. There's more satisfaction. It's like beating Wales in their own backyard on a Friday night and wherever you want to play. But if you're in the Principality, then it's nothing better when the crowd goes silent rather than when it's abusing you.
Very true, very true.
I loved that you shared, I'm going to keep referring back because obviously I spent a lot of time listening to that conversation, but I love that you shared that you just texting with some of your friends in the land of the long white cloud. So do you international, women's rugby superstars just have a WhatsApp group? I'm on a WhatsApp group where Mike's actually one of the admins, and I spectate most of the time because a lot of it is just trash.
There's a lot going on in that.
Do you international women's rugby superstars have a WhatsApp group? And if you don't, can you start one so you can share some screen grabs with us, please?
Maybe I'll start one up. Not sure what we call that, but no, we don't have a WhatsApp group, but we obviously, you get to know a lot of the girls, just kind of ping some messages around. Obviously that was pretty huge news, wasn't it? Kendra, who I know pretty well from over the years, we're of a kind of a similar age. She just dropped me a message obviously at the announcement, and a few people have been in touch and whatnot. But it's really nice. You know what a rugby community is like. It doesn't really matter what shirt you put on a weekend. You're all kind of cut from the same cloth a little bit, and it's quite nice to share that. WhatsApp group, I'm not sure about. but maybe I'll suggest it, see who wants to start that up.
The problem with people in Kiwi land is that they are going to be WhatsApping you in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
The other problem with Kiwi land at the moment is, obviously you follow a lot of the girls on Instagram and stuff, they're in the summer, they have very few COVID restrictions, and they're like at festivals. So I've had to mute a few of them just to, not make sure that I'm, because we're here, it's dreary, it's cold, it's dark most of the time, we're wearing masks and we can't go anywhere near anybody. So we're on quite different pages at the moment. So yeah.
Yeah, that's depressing. I was going to say, obviously, when we had Dan on the other show, he called Richie McCaw his Batman and he was his Robin. Obviously, you are Batman, one of the best, arguably the best player in the world. Who's your Robin?
Ooh.
Who's your sidekick?
Well, it probably used to be Katie Denny McLean. She was my roommate for a long time, but obviously retired just before Christmas, not long ago. So probably someone like a Mo Hunt, like a Marley Packer, a few of us that have been around for a while. We came through like the age groups together, 19s, 20s. Yeah, they definitely always have my back.
And obviously you make the young guys make all your coffee and tea now, obviously, do you, as an older group?
You know what? I wish that happened. It doesn't work like that at all.
I can't imagine you telling Jess Breach to get you a coffee and she's going to bring one straight back.
Yeah, could you imagine? No, to be fair, a lot of the youngsters don't drink coffee and stuff. So we haven't got that into the team yet. But yeah, no, Jess Breach, you work with, you don't demand things from her, that's for sure.
We've picked that up on a few shows that she's been on.
Speaking of younger players, I watched the player cam that Meg Jones filmed the other day. She had this proper shiner. And it seemed like there was some TikToking happening on like where you guys were training. Is that also now a thing with the youngsters?
It's totally over my head. I'm not going to pretend that I understand it, know what happens, get involved with it. I was inadvertently in the background of one of Jess's and Zoe's in a change room in Italy back in the autumn. Yeah, they love it. As I say, I don't understand it. After training, I'm getting my recovery, getting ready to go home, put my feet up, and they're in the corner rehearsing and choreographing some, look. So if you ever see me on there, I have my arm seriously twisted. It's not because it's what I want to be doing.
It's for the good of the game. That's what they're going to say to you.
Exactly.
It's the good of the game. I was going to say, my daughter keeps going, have you got TikTok? And I have it on my phone. I've never used it in my life. And I'm like, just don't need another social platform to try and get my head around it. Even though I do like, busting out the odd move here and there, I'm not sure that I want to. It's
so well choreographed as well, and everyone has such good rhythm. From what I've seen, there's not many duffers, and there's a lot of duffers within our team in terms of being able to hold a rhythm, being able to click at the right time and all that sort of stuff. So I think the youngsters can have it and run with it.
Do you know that I got a reminder yesterday that I joined TikTok around this time last year. I created a TikTok account. I found that there was one in my name. It was a fan that had created it, and it had so many followers. And all this person was doing was they were screen recording my stories that I put on Instagram, and they were just posting those on TikTok. And I'm pretty sure my actual TikTok account is still lagging, but as in by tens of thousands behind this fake account that someone else had created for me. So if you're the person who created the fake account, please just give me the login. And if you have created an account for Scaz, then please just send her the logins as well. And we'll just, between us, try and feel not that old around the TikTok conversation. On the topic of age, you'll be 32 in a bit when this Rugby World Cup finally rolls around, as it is scheduled at the moment for 2022. Tell me about your thoughts on how long you'll still be playing on the biggest stage in rugby. Are you going to be one of those kind of Victor Matfields who keep playing until they hit 45, or what are we feeling at the moment?
Well, Mike just told me he retired at 36, so based on that, I've got some of my best years yet to come. But I don't know. I haven't given it a huge amount of thought. I'm not pinned. Obviously, the plan was the World Cup was happening kind of just after the summer. I had no plans to retire after that. And then I guess just see what happens, take it as it comes, see how the body was feeling, see what else comes up in life. So yeah, I guess that's still the same plan. I think it's hard I don't know at the moment, therefore I don't want to put a time frame on it. From what I've heard, when you know, or your body's kind of giving you some serious signs, when that happens, I'll hang up the boots. But if I'm still playing at 45, somebody needs to run on the field and shoehorn me off. Yeah, something's gone wrong.
Don't worry, I'll be telling you if you're 45 and you still. I'm like, come on, it's time. You need to let this go. No, I can still
How
make
did you
it.
know?
I actually didn't want to retire when I retired. I had a few personal milestones that I would have liked to have got done. I'd been at Gloucester 9 years. I thought, get to 10 years would be quite nice. I was on 190 Premiership games. So to get to that 200 would have been nice. So there were a few things that I wanted to stay there, but I still love it. I still loved playing. My love of the training was diminishing. Well, the love of the rugby training was diminishing a bit, but ultimately it was probably my second to last year when a lot of the law changes came in around competing for high balls, and if someone ended up on their back or net, you were yellow carded, even if it was a fair contest back then or whatever. And there was most of the law changes were what I would say were my stronger parts of the game: sticking your head over the ball, going up for ball, and then they were just, there's a good chance you're getting yellow carded. I was just like, ugh, it's dragging me down a little bit. And in the end, I've never lost the love for playing, which is why I still play. But it's quite nice to do it in a more relaxed fashion now. And I've been very fortunate with my body that it's not in a horrendous nick. I get back pain every now and again, but generally, all in all, if Mia want to go outside and play rugby, kick a football around, I've got no issues in terms of sprinting around and running around. So, that's a good place. It's always a good place to finish. But I think as long as you love it and you can actually keep up, that's the biggest thing. I mean, the problem is for us Scaz is as backs, there's always quicker people that come on the scene, and you pretty quickly when, as a professional, when you're getting skinned and people are actually, they're smaller than you, but they're more powerful than you, they're faster than you, and they've got a better step and they can actually pass.
Just keep moving in, don't you? So you go from a 13 to a 12 to a 10 that kicks the corners.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, they played me at 10 once, and then they were like, no, this is not the way. Why is no one else getting the ball? Oh, the 10's trucking it all the time. Okay. And he doesn't even kick. You move in. Some people, isn't it? I think there was I can't remember who it was, an Aussie coach who started at fullback and ended up at hooker. So once you've got there, you've been in the game too long.
A little bit like being 45. If I enter 8 or below, again, get me off the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. You never want to be in the boil house. If you're ever there, you need a massive reality check.
But what's astounding is that you have such a rugby CV. There's literally only one thing missing from it.
Yeah, look, everyone, it's the most commonly asked question is, normally it goes, do you regret not being a Lion? Well, unfortunately, through injury, I had no control over it. So I can't regret it, and I don't regret it. And if asked, would I change my career just to be a Lion? I wouldn't, because I've been very, very fortunate to be part of an incredible England team at that setup. I've been involved with incredible clubs in terms of Bath and Gloucester, and would I want to change that just to be a Lion? No. Would I have loved being a Lion? Yes. Would I have fitted into the social side of that aspect? Yes, I possibly would. But it probably means I kept myself off the papers a little bit more by not going on one. So I would have loved to have gone. I would be lying if I didn't say that I would have loved to go. But 2005 was the one where I got the letter. I was picked, but I unfortunately had a foot fracture in my foot, and also had to have a shoulder operation. So I missed that one. But then looking back on that one, but then I probably would have got 2 tests, because Drico obviously had that tackle, and you think, well, what could have been? And same with 2001. I was watching that the other day. Not that I'm a rugby pig, but I ended up watching one of the games because it was on, and I did think I would love to have been on that tour. But now that I'm talking myself into the fact that actually maybe I do regret it, but I don't. I promise. No, I would have loved to have gone, but that's the way that life goes, and that's something you've got to learn about sport. Is injuries come at the wrong times. Sometimes they come at the wrong times for other people that make it the right time for you, and you've got to be able to deal with that and get on with it.
Emily, I saw today that there was very nearly a women's Lions tour 20 years ago. They were very close to sending a team to Australia in 2001 to play alongside the men's tour. And then apparently the Australian Rugby Union were unable to find the budget for referees, which is now, that's astounding that was the reason in hindsight. But if that had gone through and we'd had women's Lions teams since then, you would have probably been a multiple Lion already, 3 tours behind you, serious veteran stuff.
It would have been cool. It would have been really cool. I read that this week as well, to be fair. I think the Lions has always been something that I've watched, bucket list stuff when I retired to go on a tour. said it on the show earlier in the week, definite bucket list to be a part of, but like with an asterisk, because it was never something that I've been able to like set as a goal or, you know, really dream about. Yeah, it would be awesome. I think we were in New Zealand in 2017 when the Lions were there, and we played a test before one of their midweek games in Rotorua before that, and it was unreal. Just the whole place lit up with red, obviously, and black. Fans were amazing. The whole, just the nation literally engulfed the Lions tour. So you see what it does, you see what it means, and yeah, it'd be awesome to put on a red shirt, but you never know. See what happens.
Obviously, with us giving your own, I think Scaz Tours is probably coming on, where you can be the tour leader, and you know, we can create another thing that you can have your name on, and we'll all jump on board. I think it'll work.
I've got nothing.
I do think they've missed a trick. I think it's something that needs to come in. We talk about growing the game globally, taking advantage of it. There's so much you could do with a women's Lions tour in terms of it doesn't, because there's nothing that's gone before you. Why does it have to be the same as the blokes? I think you could do you know, Northern America, you can bring America into it. You can help grow the game all over the place.
You'd have to make it its own thing, like say, rip up the Lions rulebook a little bit, change it to make it as competitive, as exciting, as want to be watched, if that's even a phrase, as the men's is. North America, New Zealand, traveling places like that would be insane. Some people have chatted, do you get France involved, make it British, Irish and French situation? It would be super cool.
Do we bring in the French?
Language barrier is an easy one to kind of...
It'll benefit all. I'd love to be able to speak French, and it'll save you having to go over and play for a French club. That'd be brilliant. But then everyone would have to get into coffee. You say there's no coffee drinkers. You can't bring the French in.
Oh no, sorry. There's a lot of coffee drinkers, just not so many young coffee drinkers.
Oh, okay.
The rest of it, do or die, yeah.
The one thing that no one seems to be discussing is that surely you can't call this team that a feasibility study is only being conducted on now the Lionesses, because that's taken. I've come up with an idea.
You look like a police officer.
I've got notes.
Name, sir.
How about, wait for it, the Nalas?
Okay.
No.
I get where you're going. Long live the king.
Lion, female,
yeah.
Not Simba, but
yeah, I get where you're
Nala.
going. Long
Have you got a better idea? Come on.
Now you put us on the spot, haven't you? Now we're all trying to think of famous lions. Now you've sent us down the Nala road. By the end of this, our podcast, I will have come up with a name. That is my challenge. Pretty much, because I'm a man, I can't multitask, so I'm pretty much going to be out of this conversation for the rest of the podcast, but I'm going to come back with a cracker by the end of this.
But the one thing that no one is mentioning is that the men's Lions tour heads to South Africa. And if you are setting up a Lions tour now, and you have maybe some matches this year already, maybe just some early kind of toe in the water stuff, and then you have a series in New Zealand, Australia in about 4 years' time, and then another series in potentially France or the US and Canada. And you basically allow a full 12-year period. Knowing what you know about South African women's rugby, Emily, do you think that you could set up a women's rugby program that would justify a Lions tour stop in South Africa in 12 years or so?
I think it'd be awesome if they could. Like Lynn Cantwell obviously has been employed to go out there, and I can't remember her title, performance director or something like that, something big and important sounding. And she's going to be brilliant. She's going to be absolutely brilliant. I know Lynn pretty well, obviously played against her for years. She played at Richmond for a long time. She's an awesome, one, human being, but two, she's very switched on. So I think that's an awesome appointment for them. I think they need fresh eyes. I think they need something different to come in and input. Obviously, she was part of the Irish squad for a long, long time. A lot of what they did, I imagine she'll perhaps bring I don't know a huge amount about the South African women's team and their current circumstances and stuff, but I know it's a rugby passionate nation. I know there'll be a lot of, very good female athletes in that nation that could very easily turn their hand to a game like rugby. So I think it's potentially scary prospect, but I think it's one that she will definitely, grab with both hands. And yeah, why not? 12-year target. It sounds doable, doesn't it?
For sure, as long as you get the support and you get... SA is such a sports-mad country. To think that it couldn't do that is blows my mind because, as you say, we sit on a WhatsApp group with a lot of South African passionate sports fans, and it's just making sure that money goes to the right places and it's done in the right way. I mean, current men's world champions at the moment, and a lot of inspirational characters within that have done it not an easy way, hard way, and loads of that to tap into. So why not? Why couldn't it be? There's got to be that inspiration out there. There's got to be a belief out there, and as long as there's help along the way and the money goes to the right places to make sure that it gives people opportunities, because that's all you need to give enough people opportunities to be able to take part.
By employing someone like Lynn, they're reaching out, they're trying to do something different. To me, that's like step one, that's hugely positive. I think if you're not interested, if you're not prepared to put something behind it, you don't do that. So I think that's a huge kind of statement for them. And yeah, I think they'll roll with it.
I think the closest parallel you could probably draw is Japan and how they really planted rugby. I mean, Japan had played at men's rugby World Cups for so many years, but before they beat the Springboks in 2015, the only victory they had ever scored at a men's rugby World Cup was a win over Zimbabwe in 1991. And between 2015 and 2019, but I guess you can say from 2012 until 2019, there was this huge growth spurt, which I'm guessing was like massively underpinned by the fact that they were included in Super Rugby. The Sunwolves could compete against the best of the Southern Hemisphere at a club level, and they have a local domestic league. And I guess those would probably be kind of important starting points. Is, do you have that in the women's game? Can you create that kind of space to develop competitive rugby?
You would be able to tell us more about that. I think it's all about, as well, is the provinces out there helping with this as well, surely. But then, are there financially the support of the higher level of the game at the moment? I know there's talk that there isn't enough money going into rugby as a whole in South Africa. There's a lot of exodus to France. There's a lot of exodus to other countries. So does that then show that there's a problem from the start? Because, for how big the sport is, it's not really getting the love at the Super Rugby level. So then do you say, well, is there a problem at the Super Rugby level? And I know when we've had a look at this on The Good, the Bad, the Rugby, in terms of how you could set up a global season, problems that I see within South Africa and Australia, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the identification with the team, because it's provinces, it's sometimes widely spread apart, especially in Australia. Where's the local that gets the local fans into it? The real grassroots and then they're drawn from each of those to a bigger thing that everyone feels connected to, because people who are going and up the ladder. Now it just seems it's Super 14 rugby, or there's not, yes, obviously there's Currie Cup, but the divide seems a long way apart, and then you lose fans off the side of it. So that's something they need to look at, I think, in SA, and how you pull this huge fan base of high-end sport together to start it again at grassroots rugby. Because you look how passionate South Africa is about school rugby. It's ridiculous. People can quote you players on this. We go back to the Smutby WhatsApp group. We'll put you on, Scaz, if you want. Actually, you don't want to be on it. There's some weird stuff on there. I can't believe you're still on it. They know all these players from schools rugby and where they play and the position, and then obviously there just must be a huge gap between that level and then getting to the next level, whether it be Currie Cup and then obviously Super Rugby. And that's the problem with SA, is they need to get their whole rugby sort of thing in shape, because there's talk about the Six Nations. Do they leave Super Rugby? When there's that sort of doubt, you're never going to be able to put the building blocks in place to grow the rest of it. So they need to do some foundation work first, I think. What
has been professional in the women's game in South Africa for the last few years has been the women's sevens program. And so that has been the structure under which women's rugby has had some sort of professional kind of space to live and breathe and develop some talent. And it's interesting because I read in the Afrikaans press today a story that kind of outlines the challenge with the Women's Rugby World Cup being in 2022 now, and the fact that there's the small matter of the Sevens Rugby World Cup taking place in South Africa in 2022. So you've got that, and you've got the Commonwealth Games, which is scheduled from July until August 2022. And then you've going to do a Women's 15s World Cup in the middle of that. I mean, that is a massive balancing act. And then fitting a Women's Sevens into somewhere in this cycle, because the next Men's Lions Tour is 2025 to Australia, which is a Women's Rugby World Cup year. Then you have the Olympic Games in 2024 and the Sevens World Cup again in 2026. Where would you ideally slot in a Women's Lions Tour? Would you want the Women's Lions Tour to coincide with the Men's Rugby World Cup in that same year, because that the inverse happens, in the 2 years that follows on that? Emily?
Chaos, isn't it? Absolute chaos. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think you probably naturally look at trying to tag on to the men's, but at the same time, we've seen a lot of that. Like, we've done a lot of that. We've played after the men at Twickenham, and it's great and it has its place. But at the same time, I think there's a huge value, and potentially where we're going now with the opportunity that this Six Nations brings is trying to stand on our own feet as well. I think it's really important. We're not branding ourselves differently, but trying to just put ourselves in a different space, not compete airtime with the men, not compete with kickoff times, not compete, fast fans, trying to kind of separate ourselves a little bit. And it'll be really interesting this Six Nations to see how that goes. It's, it wasn't a planned thing. It's obviously happened because of the situation that's going on with COVID. But it'll be really interesting to see how that works. But yeah, where you fit potential Lions Tour into that, because you think all of those competitions you've listed are all England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland will be there. How you then pull a team together whilst individual teams are trying to compete for, a big goal as well. Way above my pay grade, Omar.
And player welfare and making sure that you're not burnt out by the end of it. And I mean, there's loads of questions. As a fan now, the idea of a Lions series, both male and female, running simultaneously, but maybe playing a day later, so you're not, so if a midweek game for the boys on a Wednesday, you play on a Thursday, and then your test is on a Sunday, or the Saturday equivalent is on a Sunday. So it's back. You're getting extra games for bang for your buck, because the way that Lions trips goes, obviously the fans will just get enthralled within it, and you'll get dragged up in this huge wave. Now it's going to be interesting around the Six Nations. The only shame about the Six Nations is you're not going to have fans in there to actually find out if it makes a difference in terms of how many people come and watch when you're standing on your own 2 feet, because I think it would. I hope it would improve attendances, because I know exactly what you mean when Twickenham you play after the boys or whatever, and people have been drinking all day. They don't sort of, they pay lip service to it in some ways, don't they? And I don't really agree.
The traffic to die down.
Yeah, I don't really agree with it. Whereas, it would be interesting if you did it at this sort of a similar time of standing alone. But this is then maybe what we've been saying is, if you're going to create your own path, then you have to try these things. So maybe it is something for Six Nations to actually go, we're not going to run them side by side. We are going to run them later, so that we can actually find out a bit more about our fan base, who's coming to watch, and that might be quite interesting to do in terms of going forward.
I do think a Lions Tour with the men, though, would be unreal. As I said, when we were there 2017 as an England team, even when we played beforehand, there was loads of Lions fans there. They were Scottish, Welsh. You could physically hear some of the accents, but they were still cheering us on like nothing else, like we were their team. So I think that kind of...
It's very rare for an English person to say that. Very, very rare.
I promise you it happened. I don't have physical proof of it, but I promise you it happened.
Amazing.
I feel like COVID has almost rejigged so many of these timelines already, that if there is a way to now justifiably host the women's event for the Rugby World Cup, and anyway 4 years on from 2022, that shifts it out of a Lions year. And so maybe there is a window here. Something that has never happened in the last 100 years has now created this tiny little gap for rugby to maybe just shift when it's most needed.
We had a shift a few years ago, didn't we? Because when the Olympics got brought in, they had to change. That then coincided with the Sevens World Cup year. So the Sevens World Cup year had to change. Then the 15s World Cup year, we did a 3-year cycle because that clashed with something because of the Olympics. I can't quite remember the goings on of it, but that's already happened once. So to do that again and shift something else out, I don't know how you do it. I think one of the biggest things is the fact that we as women play 7s and 15s, and it's very interchangeable. The people you see at the Olympics in the summer, you'll definitely see a large proportion of them at the World Cup a year later. And I think that makes the water a bit cloudier in terms of obviously the player pool, and then like the player welfare bit. How much rugby are they playing? Are they going on a 7 circuit all year and then playing a 15 season? Like it's a lot. I've done it a bit here and there and mishmash between the two, but I think until you can get a pathway where sevens is used however it's used, unbelievable sport, people will specialise, youngsters might do it and then move on to 15s games, whatever. Until you can have those very separate programmes worldwide, I think it's really, really tough.
So now, are you considering, is it still possible for you to throw your head back into the ring for the Olympics, because now you don't have a 15s World Cup to be prepping for?
The theory's a nice idea, isn't it? For me, I'm probably a bit over the brow of playing sevens with all the youngsters that, like we were talking about earlier, you lose your speed a bit as you get older, and I would definitely be left short a little bit, I think. Yeah, I think I made the decision to step away from sevens a couple of years ago. That was because I wanted to focus on 15s. That hasn't changed for me. The Olympics will be amazing. Hopefully, obviously, if it all goes well. And we've got a really good set of sevens players that have obviously been working pretty hard for the last couple of years. So yeah, I'll definitely let them crack on, and I'll sit at home with my feet up watching them.
How hard is it to switch between the two of, training for sevens, training for 15s? Because I imagine people just think it's easy, but it's a completely different animal, isn't it? Sevens to 15s. Yeah,
completely different animal. Obviously, the physical nature of it is pretty plain and simple in terms of sevens is very much about speed, fitness, high speed meters are through the roof. And obviously 15s relative is a lot less. You go for longer, but the bits you get rest. It's a scrum happening as a 13. I'm sat having a 2-minute rest while that kind of cracks off. Yeah. So they are really different. And I think I personally I found it quite difficult transitioning back. I remember coming back from I think it was the 2018 World Cup and Commonwealth Games cycle, coming back my first 15s game, I was terrible, like dropping the ball at the line because I got too flat, or not being able to make a pass because your depth was all wrong, your alignment was, you're used to being in all this space and kind of being able to run along and pick whatever you want, and 15s just shut all of that down. So it is an adjustment. I think some people, dependent perhaps on your position in both the games, do it easier than others, but yeah, it definitely is an adjustment.
All of us got to experience Tokyo during the Rugby World Cup in varying degrees. Now, the story came out today that athletes at the Tokyo Games will not have their family members be able to attend. They won't have fans from back home. Likelihood being that it'll be Japanese fans only, and you just basically go in, bubble, perhaps with your coach, play, and back out. You were there in Rio. How big a part was the environment and the vibe, and how important is the fact that you have kind of people coming in to support you, and maybe if you're lucky, a family member in the crowd when you are playing at something like an Olympic Games?
Yeah, it was huge. And loads of the girls had family that came out. We were able to spend time with them because you're out there for a long period of time. You go to a holding camp. We had a GB holding camp that you were there for a couple of weeks, and then you actually move to the village where again you're probably there for a couple of weeks. So it's a decent period of time away from home. Yeah, a lot of the girls had family that were able to come out. We were able to have like friends and family days where we could go and spend time with them. Be a Rio tourist, which was very cool. And then obviously like the playing side of it, having fans there is massive. If you win a gold medal and you become an Olympic champion, you're going to be an Olympic champion forever. You're not an Olympic champion without no fans. So I think for a lot of people, and athletes are a particular breed in terms of how they go about their business, and if you're training for something, you're training for something. However, you can't deny the fact that the atmosphere at something like an Olympic Games is unreal. And Rio, obviously, party capital, carnival, that kind of vibe, that was huge, and you felt that you bred off that energy. So I think it will be strange. I think it's a real shame. It's certainly like the crowds lift you up. I was at 2012 as a spectator when it was in London, watching things like handball. Didn't even know how to play handball, but it was packed and it was brilliant, and we were all cheering for, we weren't sure what, but we were there and we were amongst it, and it was brilliant. Exactly. And to not have that will be a huge shame, but at the end of the day, athletes want to perform and they'll do that whether there's people there or not.
Mike, have you thought of a name for the Lions women's team yet?
I've got two. One you might get on board with. The other one you definitely won't. So obviously the other great lion movie is obviously Born Free. I think it was called Elsa, wasn't it? So the Elsas. So going along your Nalas. The other one's the Cougars. No?
If I'm 45, I might still make that.
Well, weigh in on the socials and let us know whose proposal, or perhaps you're 100% more original than we are and you can think of something better. Mike, it sounds like someone is calling you in the background. So I'm going to suggest we reconvene at a different time, maybe in a week from now.
You're just worried about your bedtime. As the battery just hit low, you got to get up early in the morning. So it's good. I did see the shutters. We've got to get her before she powers off, people.
Yeah, and Emily literally spent the entire day training in the dirt and the mud. You used the word gross earlier, so I know that you need a little me time.
Weather was great. Rugby was great, obviously. But yeah, definitely need a bit of time to get an early bedtime tonight, that's for sure.
Okay, well, that is the first edition of The Good, The Scaz. Yes, a show named after you, Emily. The Good, The Scaz, and the Rugby. Make sure that you keep following at The Good, Scaz, and Rugby. Thanks to Allianz for having our back on this. And we'll bring you more of the same place next week.